Lisa and I were in Texas, where I'm from. And as we walked out to the car on our way to the airport, Lisa said, "Smells like Texas." And it did. Humidity, ugh. But also fresh cut grass and dirt from the nearby gardens. There's the fragrance of the blooming flowers, cows. Have you ever noticed that sometimes houses have a unique smell? It's not a good smell or a bad smell necessarily, it's just its smell. You open the door and it hits you, this unmistakable scent that you couldn't describe to anyone, but when it's there, you recognize it in an instant. Who knows why? Maybe the carpet's old, or they use Mrs. Meyer's cleaner. Do they burn candles or have old books sitting around? A dog, perhaps? A cat? A gerbil? Do the people who live there wear perfume or take bubble baths or use essential oils? Do they cook? Often? Seldom? Do they love bacon? Who doesn't love bacon? My house smells like my house. Your house smells like your house. And somehow no two are alike. Each home, its own thumbprint. Each home in its own way, its own little world. My grandparents have been gone a long time now, but I still remember how their house smelled. Sort of pot roast and cigars, you know, the Prince Machiavelli perfume that my grandmother wore. If we pay attention, there might be a moment when you walk through the door of home and something in your body just exhales. Your home might be an extravagant place or a humble one. The decor and the lighting might be perfect, or it might not be. Home can be quiet and calm, or noisy and chaotic. But if we're lucky, we can open that door, smell that smell, and something deep inside of us recognizes, this is where I belong. I'm home. Home is one of those words that we use easily, casually. We idealize home and make assumptions about what home means to each of us. Is it the smell of your grandmother's kitchen? The face of someone who knows you and loves you? Does home mean rest and belonging? Or is home a wound? That word home might bring up some pain. Homes can be lost to natural disasters, or to death, or estrangement of some kind. Some of us grew up in homes where we never felt safe. And maybe now we're in the process of building a home with the kind of culture that we need. Some of us are still searching for home. Our text today is from Matthew's Gospel. I'll read it now, and then I'm going to suggest 3 ideas that the text inspires in me. I know 3-point sermons are no longer in vogue, but today we're going old school. John chapter 14. Do not let your hearts be troubled. Believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house there are many dwelling places. If it were not so, would I have told you that I go to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and will take you to myself, so that where I am, there you may be also. Jesus speaks these words, according to John's imagination at least, at the Last Supper. The shadow of betrayal has been named. His friends are frightened. They can feel that something is ending. And into that fear, into that grief, Jesus says, in my Father's house, there are many dwelling places. The Greek word translated dwelling places has this sense of abiding, of staying, of living. the sort of place that holds you, that feels like home. The longing for home is a common theme in literature, music, in our dreams even. And we see it in the Bible. The Psalms are full of expressions of what they thought of as God's home and how they longed for it. Verses like, "How lovely is your dwelling place. My soul longs, yes, faints for the courts of the Lord." As these psalms arose, the Hebrew people were in exile in Babylon. They had been forcibly displaced from their land, and they longed to be home. Psalm 137 is a heartbreaking expression of this longing for home. The psalmist writes, "By the rivers of Babylon we sat down, and there we wept when we remembered Zion, their home. There our captors asked us for songs, and our tormentors asked for mirth, saying, 'Sing us one of those songs of Zion.' But how could we sing the Lord's song in a foreign land?" This chapter of the ancient Israelites' history, this period of exile and displacement and longing, is part of the generational experience that informed Jesus. At the Last Supper, Jesus is speaking to people whose world is falling apart. And he says, "I know that you're troubled. I know that the ground is shifting under your feet, and I want to tell you something true about where you belong." As we think about that sense of longing for home, here's a reflection question. I'll give you a pause to think about it. When in your life have you felt most at home? And what factors made that feeling possible for you? When have you felt most at home? Moving on to welcome. One word from our passage that I had never really thought that much about until I wrote this sermon is many. In my Father's house are many dwelling places. Not just a room, many rooms. And the Greek implies the sense of abundance. More rooms than you could count, more than you need. There is no shortage of space in the house of God, in the heart of God. And I find that to be a really powerful idea, probably because I'm someone who has been told that there's no room for me. At certain points in my life, I've been sort of kicked out of places that I thought were home. Family, church, Christianity even. I mean, I could stay, but only if I pretended to be something that I wasn't. And I know that I'm not the only one with experiences like that. So sometimes the idea of home becomes a sort of weapon. It becomes transactional. Belonging is conditional, and it's based on conformity. But Jesus says, there are so many rooms for you, many dwelling places. We'll find one that is just right for you. The divine house to which God welcomes us is so large, so generous, so expansive, that everyone has a place prepared for them. You, me, everyone is expected, is wanted. Everyone belongs. So a question about welcome, or rather the lack of welcome. Have you ever felt like you didn't fit in a place that you wanted to be? A family or a community of some kind? A church? And how has that experience shaped you? Our third point is about preparation. Usually when this passage is preached, it's that Jesus is talking about heaven, about what comes after we die. And this verse is often read at funerals. Someone has died, and the words are meant to evoke a sense of comfort that that person is home. That's a beautiful idea. There's nothing wrong with that interpretation by any means. And I don't want to take anything away from that idea, but I do want to offer an additional way that we can think about this passage. Consistently in the Gospels, Jesus is not primarily interested in the idea of heaven as a place that we go to when we die, after we die. The phrase, the kingdom of God, Jesus says, is on earth as it is in heaven. The realm of God, he says, is among us. It is near. It is here. It is now. And in this passage, he says, the realm of God is like this big house, and there's room for everyone. So if we believe that the nature of God is radical and abundant and extravagantly welcoming, then we are called to embody that here, in this house, in this church that we are building together. We are called to create that sense of expansive welcome here. We're called to nurture a culture where everyone belongs, where everyone feels at home. Home is something then that we create. As a church, we're called to be there for one another and for the stranger. A house with so many rooms, so many ways of fitting in. A place where belonging is not earned, but is freely given to everyone. But you know what? That's not always easy, right? Genuine belonging is not just tolerance. It's not just niceness. But actual belonging may ask something costly of us. It might mean making room in our imaginations for people whose experience is very different from our own. It might mean sitting with our own discomfort when someone else's truth challenges our assumptions. It means over and over again choosing the expansive way over the narrow way. What would it look like for this congregation to be a house with many rooms for those in our city who are searching for belonging? Now that question might have prompted an image in your mind of someone who you imagine is still searching for a church home. Let me suggest, I'll close with just a couple of ideas that might not have as readily come to mind. Lisa and I are grandmothers to Clark and Stanley. And let me tell you, I'm finding the experience of being a grandmother so fantastic. When I get to be with Clark and Stanley, sometimes my heart feels like the Grinch's when it grew 3 sizes on Christmas. You know, I'm just overwhelmed by the love that I feel for them. When I know I'm going to be with them, I'm so excited. I think about what they'll need to be comfortable. I plan what we'll do, and then if they don't want to do it, that's okay. We'll do whatever they want to do. So, what does that sort of attitude look like in a church, particularly towards children? Now, I won't offer responses here, but I just want you to think about welcoming every child you see as this beloved grandchild. And last, we spent time together during Lent thinking about our relationship to the land, to creation. So as you walk out of church today, take a moment, look around you at the trees, the plants, the dirt even. Be mindful of the air and the clouds and the sky and the mountains. There's something of home in the way all of creation welcomes us into the community of living things. The recognition that we belong to this earth, to this web of life, to one another. But we were never meant to be isolated, self-sufficient, and alone. Belonging is not something we manufacture. It's deep within us. It's something we remember. Because the earth is our home. How do we make it comfortable? How do we make the earth feel at home and have what it needs to thrive? In a world that gives us plenty of reasons to be troubled, Jesus says, your heart doesn't need to be troubled. And those words are not, I don't believe, a command to stop feeling, but they're an invitation to remember who we are, to remember that in the vast and generous household of God, a place is prepared for each of us. Not because we've earned it, not because we have all the answers, but because we are beloved. We belong in this church, among these people, on this earth. We are home, every one of us.